Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Marissa Johanson, who's here to share with us her new book, Decide, Your Simple System for Getting It Right the First Time. So are the decisions you make more important than you realize? And if so, how do you choose the right one and move forward? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Marissa Johanson is privileged to claim two families as part of her origin story, having been adopted as an infant. When she was reconnected with her birth mother at the age of 29 while pregnant with her firstborn, she learned the rest of the story. The magnitude of that reality further underscored her sense of gratitude. Today, she is grateful for the decision that has afforded her chances to multiply the blessings of life onto others, which she has done for 34 years as a registered nurse, flight nurse, mother of her two grown daughters, and wife of her husband, who has navigated this path of discovery with her. So welcome to the show, Marissa Johanson.
Thank you. I am just delighted to be here.
My goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So before we get too far down the road, I would love for you to share with us what inspired you to write this.
Well, it was a couple of things. I had back during the pandemic, I think a lot of us had experiences in that pandemic that were sobering. Some of them got our attention for sure, right? And for me, it wasn't anything related directly to the pandemic other than it just was such a weird wrinkle in our time. But I had a stroke and I had a very good outcome from my stroke. As you can hear, I'm able to speak clearly and able to share my ideas still. But that's kind of what sort of propelled me forward was that I realized that time got very compressed. I only had X amount of it left, and I needed to spend the remaining amount of time trying to get the best value for the time that I have. And one of the things I have always valued is the power of a well-made decision, because in my own personal experience and professional experience, I cannot tell you how much strength really there is in a well-made decision. I have seen firsthand and lived firsthand the results of both poorly made and well-made decisions. And there is nothing that I can think of, no single act that I can think of that carries more weight for your present circumstance and future circumstances than decisions. And so that was the thing that really just propelled me forward. And then watching the school campuses this last spring across our nation explode in violence, understanding the anger and the worry and the anxiety that is had, and it doesn't even matter what side of anybody's conflict you're kind of coming down on, it just still produced all these big feelings that students wanted to share and express, which I don't deny them that opportunity. However, the decision to do so in the manner that they did will prove to them to be, some of them, it will be really a devastating set of decisions that they made. They might have gotten kicked out of school. They might not be accepted readily into another school. They might have real difficulty achieving the outcomes in their lives that they wanted to achieve because they made some pretty ill-timed decisions and acted on them without a lot of thought. It was mainly just emotion. And I don't know about you, but I know that in my time on the earth, the decisions that I've observed having the most difficult outcomes have been the ones that have been made emotionally. And so I wanted to just offer, and I thought about it long and hard, what do I know that I could share that would solve a problem for people? Because clearly I do believe that I'm here to not add to problems, but rather try to minimize and solve and mitigate them. And I thought, well, actually, decision making. I've had to make decisions my whole career, and not only for myself, but for other people. And so making decisions well and consistently doing it well is a learned skill. And I want to convey to everybody it doesn't matter that you might have made a bad decision or a series of bad decisions. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you have the ability to learn how to make them better. And as human beings, of all the mammals that inhabit this planet, as human beings, we have available to us this really wonderful superpower, and it's called choices, decision making. That's our superpower as humans, and it puts us way and above every other mammal on the planet. And I don't know that people fully embrace that as much as I would like them to.
Well, it's really interesting because I think you are uniquely qualified to really talk about decisions being a flight nurse. I mean, because you're making life and death decisions as you're working with people every day.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes we need to act within seconds. Sometimes we have a few minutes, depending on the patient. And we need to act under the best decision making headspace that we can. And that comes from a couple of different places. I mean, we make decisions based on practice. So we do drills and we practice and we plan and we prepare. But we also put to use a methodology for decision making. And as long as it's not tampered with, it actually works very, very well. Now, there are some bad actors out there that interfere with our decision making as medical providers, and the same is true in life. I mean, outside of any specific profession, as humans, we just need to make decisions and choices, right? And things can come along, can interfere with that and really cause some trouble. And it doesn't even have to be anything dramatic or grand. It could just be something, a series of simple things like you're tired, you didn't eat right, you're dehydrated, you've got a coworker that's vexing, you had a family event that was disturbing or something. Those kind of stresses can really get in the way and be the bad actors that disrupt your ability to make a good decision well. And so I have had plenty of those kind of things in my job. And I've made decisions about patient care in the middle of a cow field, in the middle of a dry river bottom. I mean, like I've made decisions about things in different circumstances and settings. And if you get a consistent method learned and apply it with consistency being the key, it'll become much more automatic and you'll be much more capable to do it no matter the environment.
What key skills for sound decision making are often overlooked and why are they so crucial in today's fast paced world?
Well, I think the biggest key skill is learning how to slow your head down. So, because it's a fast paced world, right? That's one of the things that can push or pressure people into making sort of more emotionally based or impulsive based decisions. And I don't know if you heard this when you were a child, but I did hear this when I was a kid. Like when we feel sort of angered or triggered to come back at somebody with some snarky reply or something in an exchange that's not going well. Um, in those moments, if you slow yourself down and count to 10, maybe you'll get yourself a little time to make a better reply, form a better reply. I have a saying that I learned, and it came from the military to me, but it's kind of the same concept. And it is just to get my head to slow down and and to be confident in the fact that your brain neurons, the neurons in your brain can make their connections fire their synapses and help you pull up the right information that you need to remember and put to work right now faster than time can move on a clock. That actually is a true thing. And so if people will slow down and give themselves a chance, their heads will come through for them. And so what I say to myself when I am in the middle of that kind of a pressure-filled environment is I say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And that just calms my mind and gets my head cleared up to where I can pull up what I need to be using and put it to work immediately without any more fuss. And if that's probably the single most biggest key skill. The other key skill is learning to remember a stepwise approach. And so that's what I have done with the book. And each chapter in the book goes through one of the steps in a little more detail.
Can you share with us the pivotal decision in your own life that inspired Decide and influenced its message?
I thought about that question. That's a great question. So I back and forthed a little on it, and I still do a little, and I would say that both of these events were very pivotal. The first was the decision to become a nurse. Becoming a nurse actually gave me the structure and the support to learn about how to decide things that I'm not sure I would have gotten any other way. Possibly I would have, but possibly not. And the decision-making structure that we use in nursing is modeled very much along the same lines as the one that's used in medicine. And you'll see the same thing crop up again in other areas like veterinary practice or dental practice or something like that. So they all run along the same lines, and I'm not sure I would have learned them in another setting had I not gone to nursing school. So I think nursing's definitely the big pivotal thing. And then the follow-up one that I had, the second one that I had was the decision to marry my husband. That was really just a powerful, good, well-made decision, and I don't think I could have chosen better.
When you have this partner that supports and is there walking the walk with you, there's nothing more powerful than that.
Yeah, it's definitely been I can without a doubt tell you that I definitely would not have made some of the decisions and had such a great foundation without him. I really would not have. Considering the pivotal decisions in my own life, I would say it was my career decision and my marriage decision.
I mean, with the work that you do, you consistently make just these decisions under pressure. So, how can people who are reading Decide use that to craft their own, like their own way of making decisions under pressure?
I touched on it earlier in that it comes with consistently using it. So learn it in a way, and I don't know, I don't know the best way that people learn. Everybody has their own learning style, whether it's auditory or visual, or they have to do an activity. I've tried to address the doing the activity with reading and visual. So every chapter, for example, has little exercises that a person can do. In addition, I have a self-scoring tool that's free to anybody that wants it, to score themselves. Like, okay, how do I do with making decisions? I thought I was pretty good at it, but maybe I'm not, or maybe I think I'm a terrible decision maker. And then I take the scoring tool and I'm like, oh, well, actually, I do pretty good over here in this area. I just need to focus on improving in another area here. And so the book does guide people through that process. And as far as making decisions under pressure, I also mentioned the part about, slowing down a little and using something like slow is smooth and smooth is fast to get you to slow down. And then also, the last thing I would say is that this decide method and everything came from time tested, well used methods that have been in use for, a really long time in medicine. And as I also said, I mean, it really works very well if it's not interfered with. Anything that gets really tampered with and interfered with does have a hard time working well. But if you really focus on, putting it to work and allowing it to work with you and not against you, you can actually do fairly well. And my final comment about this would be like from the work that I read actually in Stephen Covey's book. He wrote this really great book several years ago, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that book, he makes the case, and I've heard it echoed by others since then, that in order to make a good, sound set of decisions and plans, you need to start with the outcome you're hoping to achieve. Start at the outcome and work your way back. And I think if folks will sort of take those things and hold them top of mind, they will have a better experience with making decisions.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Marissa Johanson in regards to her new book, Decide, Your Simple System for Getting It Right the First Time. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you an author, speaker, or expert who is looking for more publicity? Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up for free interview requests from shows looking for guests. Radio Guest List is the #1 free booking resource for radio, podcasts, and TV talk shows who are looking for experts like you right now. Visit radioguestlist.com and sign up today to get the visibility you deserve.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
It's one thing to become attached to your perfect home, but what do you do when that home becomes attached to you? A family in dire need of a fresh start, a mysterious house tied to the past. Buried deep within the foundation of the old Far Hill Manor lies a centuries-old secret. Dark forces or something stronger just waiting to be discovered. Caretaker, a supernatural thriller by breakout authors R.J. Halpert.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Mary Ann. We're here today with special guest, Marissa Johanson, in regards to her new book, Decide, Your Simple System for Getting It Right the First Time. Can you briefly share with us the Decide framework?
So I used decide as the mnemonic word that would be helpful, and it kind of goes along with the title of the book and everything. And so D would stand for diligent information gathering. So in medicine, we correlate that with our assessment phase, where we're getting 2 types of information, and you're getting subjective information and you're getting objective information. And unless people, I want you to know that emotions do play a role in decision making, but they don't need to take the upper hand. And so this is where they fit. They fit in the subjective category because often those are the things that people feel as the subjective pieces of a decision. And then the objective part is what are the data and the facts? Did you calculate the cost of something? Did you calculate and tally up how many people you'd need? Did you think about, some of the processes and what those will require? So those are the objective data points. And so you need to just do all that information gathering right at the beginning. That's like the very first part. So that diligent information gathering is my first point. E is evaluate the meaning of all the data gathered. That's where you make your diagnosis in medicine. That's where you're going to make your diagnosis in your life also. What does everything mean? When you put together all of the subjective and the objective pieces that you've gathered, what is it telling you? And stop yourself and ask yourself that question. What is this telling me? And you might even share it with somebody that you trust and say, is there something I'm not seeing here? What does this tell you? And that dialogue sometimes between the two of you as you're working through it is really, really helpful. That's what I do with my flight partner when I'm on the helicopter. We will compare data that we've observed and gathered, and we'll ask each other, okay, have we covered all the bases? Do we think there's anything else that we need to address? So, and then C would be the consideration of options or consider your plans. What are you going to do about what you've identified? You've identified what your decision maybe needs to be. Now, what are you going to do about it? This is a planning phase. And what tools do you need? How much money is it going to take? How much time? Which is more important to you, money or time? Sometimes people will spend more to save the time. And of all of the resources that we have, time is the one that you can't get back. And I kind of touched on that with my stroke. Time got compressed and I can't get time back, but I can make the time I have left be as beneficial as possible for other people and myself both. And it's possible to serve that kind of a diverse crowd, yourself and other people. You don't want to drive yourself nuts over it, but you can still offer the best of what you can for others. And then the next letter is I, and I is the implementation phase. So now you've gathered your data, you've assessed and you've diagnosed your problem, you've created a plan, and now it's time to put it to work. And within that I step, you will have time to go back and, as you're doing things, sometimes in the doing, that's when you be like, oh, I didn't think to plan for this extra step. This comes along a lot of times in, say, a building project. And you'll see it sometimes on the building project shows. They'll be like, well, we didn't anticipate running into this when we tore into this house. And so they'll need extra time, money, and personnel, equipment, and tools in order to address that unanticipated thing. So that sometimes happens with other things too. So anyway, I stands for the implementation of your plan. D is the determination of the effectiveness. That's the evaluation phase where you're determining, okay, is this really working? That's where you get your short-term data feedback. Okay, if it's working, how's it working? Where is it not working? Where do I need to add something else? Do I need to not do this and do that instead? That's where D for the determination of effectiveness comes in. And finally, on E, that's your after action time. That's where when everything is over, you go back through, evaluate the whole thing for its overall effectiveness, and you think about, okay, was this worth doing again if I had to do it again? Or if I don't want to do it again, how would I do it differently next time? And then be ready to either rerun the process or make your changes and adjustments and move on from there. So in a nutshell, that's decide.
I can see where top leaders, and it could be anyone from, youth group to leaders of Fortune 500 companies, can use this this really toolkit in order to just be better at not only decision making, but answering things without being charged with emotion all the time.
100%. And I really hope that a book like this would be useful to folks that are leading groups and even to individual parents. If they've got a kid who is struggling with decision making and they're looking for a resource, this could possibly help. I had part of my advanced reader group was a young lady. She's in the process of getting her education right now. And one of her comments coming back to me was, this is like a really great handbook that I would underline and go back and reread again and use it and refer back to it as I needed to. And I was like, bingo, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I am looking for this book to serve as a resource for people. My 15-year-old niece, she looked at the book before I published, and she's like, wow, Auntie Marissa, this is really good. Like, and I had to kind of smile at this, but she said, there's stuff in here that I've not even thought of. And I had to chuckle, at 15 years of age. That's shocking, but I asked her, my follow-up question to that was, well, I mean, are you getting taught any of this kind of methodology or anything? Do you get taught in school about how to make decisions? I know you get taught at school what decisions you should make. You should decide this. And if you don't, there's often some pressure anymore nowadays that you'll get socially canceled and outcast if you don't make this decision. And which is unfortunate. Well-made decisions need some space, some room to breathe, some freedom to be made. And when that doesn't exist, it's really pretty hard. And she goes, no, this is nothing like this is getting taught in school. And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, well, if you had to tell me where you think it would be useful to you at school, what would that be? And she said, well, like maybe do a couple of assembly sessions or do an assembly session with it. I said, what about homeroom? She goes, oh yeah, homeroom would be really good because then you could like do one chapter each week or something. And I was like, yeah, I think maybe we could, huh? And she goes, yeah. So I think that this is a piece of work that will be useful to youth group leaders, teachers, parents, anybody that's got contact with young people, kids, even fresh college graduates. There's some big decisions that confront them for sure. They've just finished this education and they are off to the next thing. And all of a sudden, the world is laying at their feet, kind of big, kind of scary. What do they do now? And using a consistent method might help them solve that problem a little bit. And you asked earlier, one of the biggest skills or one of the biggest things to use. One of my biggest things that I use is a power greater than myself. I don't ever consider myself to be the final last word in authority on anything. And so I will ask a physician, I'll pray to God, I'll check in with my partner on the helicopter. I want to be, and it's not a lack of self-confidence. That's not what it is. It's just the humility to understand that there are more than one perspective to consider, and maybe somebody else actually has a super great idea to help you move forward. And so that's what I'm hoping to share here is a set of ideas to help others move forward.
It seems that the word decide has been something that's been with you early on. Would you like to share your story of your two families with us?
Of course. I am very fortunate that I have two families. I didn't have two families until I was 29, though. I did, but I didn't. I knew that I had one in the background somewhere, but I didn't know where. I was adopted as an infant. And yes, decision making has been huge for me because I arrived on the planet secondary to an emotionally made decision by a 16-year-old. My mom was pregnant by the time she was 16, and she wasn't definitely planning to be pregnant, but biology is what it is and it does what it does. And so I was on the way. And when it became known to her mom and her stepdad, um, there was a very big fight, and it was very, very terrible. She fled from her home. She didn't even have shoes on. She just ran with the clothes on her back, and that was it. And she didn't feel safe. And she ran to a neighbor's house, borrowed some flip flops, and went to the home of her boyfriend. And when she got there, nobody was home. She had to wait for people to come home. And when his mother came home, she shared this very tearful story. And while she was in their care, um, she formed a little group to help her make this decision. And I asked her after I found her if anybody pressured her. And she said, no, at no time was she ever pressured to make the decision to put me up for adoption. And I was kind of blown away. I'm like, wow, that's really remarkable. And even more remarkable is the fact that she was able to arrive at a good decision, because she had come from a very abusive background. Her stepdad abused her from the time she was 5 until I was coming along. And the fact that she was able to get to a clarified good choice for me is pretty amazing. And so anyway, I was put up for adoption, and she didn't know for 29 years. I didn't find her till I was 29, and I was pregnant with my firstborn. She didn't know if she had made a good decision or not. She worried about me, and she said she prayed about me, and prayer was a very big feature for her. She felt that she's told me that she's always felt like, even though things were rotten for her many times growing up, that she always did feel like God was in her corner. She was never alone in the middle of her misery. And that was very, very big. I think that was really big, that she did not feel alone and abandoned. And it probably cleared the deck in her head a little bit to be able to make decisions. And so anyway, she would pray and ask for guidance, and she would go through these repeating cycles of, I'm keeping this baby. No, I'm giving her up. And she said what made the decision was that she would feel peace when she had clarified, okay, I'm giving the baby up for adoption. And then when she would get into those moments of, yeah, but I'll miss this and I want that. And then she would just have no end of upheaval and a complete lack of peace. And that became kind of the lamppost on her pathway, if you will, that little moment of peace, like, okay, yeah, the right thing to do for this baby is to, when she put her attention on what was right for me instead of what was right for her, that's when she had peace. And understanding that we make decisions for others and for ourselves is something that's really important. There are decisions that are made by us, and then there are decisions that are made for us. And I am eternally grateful that the decisions that were made for me were the ones that actually were made. I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have the 2 lovely kids I have now, who, by the way, are continuing to multiply the blessing forward. They are entering professions of their own. One is a pharmacist, and the other is going into dental hygiene. So they will be blessing the lives and supporting the good health of others as they move through their lives and careers too. None of that would have happened if she hadn't made the decision that she made. And so I'm very, very grateful. And I'm grateful to my adoptive parents. They gave me a love, a home, education, nutrition, healthcare, all the things that you need to provide for a child. And I got all those things. And that enabled me to make the decisions that I needed to make as far as becoming a nurse and so on. So that's kind of the background of why I think decisions are so, so important.
What a profound story you have, and it highlights how important decision making is, and if we're guiding young people into making decisions, how that can impact their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the impact is often immediate.
Well, that is so empowering. What would you like our listeners and readers to take away from your book?
I want them to know that their biggest power, their biggest super skill, or their biggest superpower is the power to decide. That's the biggest thing. So often people get trapped into these nonsense traps. They're like, oh, I just don't do very well at decision making. Well, yeah, but okay, you can learn how. Oh, well, but I'm trapped here by, fate and circumstance. That's true. I believe it was Elie Wiesel who said something to the nature of when he was in the concentration camps as a Jew in Germany or Poland, wherever he was at, he made the observation that he still had a choice in his head over his own thinking and his own mindset, no matter how awful his actual physical circumstances were. And so, for the people that think that they are trapped by situation and circumstance, do not ever forget that the power to evaluate and decide is yours and yours alone. And nobody can take that away from you without you giving it up.
So, Marissa, where can our listeners and readers connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
They can find me on LinkedIn, and please search for me under my name, Marissa Johanson, and the last name spelling is Johanson. And please look for me there. And if you are interested in getting a copy of the free available scorecard for decision making, just connect with me and tell me in the connection note that you would like that scorecard, and I'll get it to you.
Well, what a great gift that is. Marissa, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, thank you, Marissa. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Decide, Your Simple System for Getting It Right the First Time. Make sure to visit Marissa's website at wiselifestrategies.com, be part of her community, and learn more about her work there. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.